1 month after the end of World War I, Britain held a general election. The landslide victory for Sinn Féin demonstrated a transformation of political opinion. Redmond's Irish National Party were obliterated, and the Sinn Féin MPs who were not in jail assembled in Dublin instead of Westminster and proclaimed the first Dáil Éireann, electing Eamon de Valera as president. In the same month, January 1919, the IRA relaunched the armed struggle, with Michael Collins masterminding a carefully planned guerrilla campaign. This dual approach of electoral success and military pressure led to the outlawed government seizing real administrative powers. Despite the use of terror squads such as the Auxiliaries and the Black and Tans to intimidate the Irish people, British rule became unworkable. After the elections of May 1921 repeated the results of 1919, negotiations between the IRA and British government began. The terms of a treaty eventually accepted by Michael Collins and the other delegates were immediately rejected by half of the Sinn Féin TDs and 11 out of the IRA's 18 divisions, who then occupied the 4 courts in Dublin. Threatened with British intervention, the Free State Army attacked the 4 courts in June 1922. The Civil War was underway. This bitter struggle lasted for a year until the Republicans, badly hit by wholesale executions, laid down their arms without surrendering. The Free State government set about restoring the apparatus of colonial administration. Sinn Féin councils and courts were dismantled, and the rural revolutionary movements which had set up Soviets and taken over country estates were put down. In 1926, Eamon de Valera led a split from Sinn Féin and the IRA to form Fianna Fáil, a constitutional party to work within the Free State. A year later, this party took the oath of allegiance that they'd fought over and entered the Dáil as the main opposition party. It still attended the Bodenstown celebration in the early 30s to reap the political benefits of a continued association with the memory of Wolfe Tone. In 1932, Fianna Fáil succeeded in forming a government, and amidst high Republican hopes removed both the oath of allegiance to the British Crown and the British Governor-General. But the border issue was shirked, with economic policies serving purely to promote native private capital, with nothing being done to alleviate the hardship of the poverty-stricken working classes. During the 30s, the annual Bodenstown parades attracted more and more people. Fianna Fáil countered with their own small Bodenstown celebration, and with increased police activity against the IRA, using a newly formed special branch and the Broy Harriers. Both these squads had been stocked by ex-IRA members who joined initially to fight the Blue Shirts, the Irish fascist movement. It was during this period that several leading figures, notably Frank Ryan and George Gilmore, set up the Republican Congress, a broad-based left-wing organization dedicated to radicalizing the people and mounting agitation campaigns. Their verbal attacks on Fianna Fáil went down well, but their criticism of their own IRA leadership did nothing to bridge the gulf between them, and the Congress figures eventually resigned. Many within the Republican movement saw the Congress as just another attempt to set up a political party. The Republican Congress collapsed within a few short years, with many of its ablest members joining the International Brigade and dying in the Spanish Civil War. However, there had been one famous incident at Bodenstown involving the Congress and Protestant Republicans from Belfast. In the outdoor relief riots in Belfast in 1932, Protestants had joined their fellow Irish Catholics in opposing the Stormont government's reduction in the rate of relief, an early form of social security. The government quickly gave in, but unfortunately much of the newfound unity was dissolved by implications, on the one hand by Stormont of a Republican plot, and on the other by the Catholic Church of a communist plot. However, the Republican Congress had organized groups among Protestant workers in the Shankill Road and East Belfast, and many of those marched to Bodenstown on June the 17th, 1934, having first laid a wreath on Connolly's grave in Arbour Hill. The IRA saw the Congress as using the parade as a socialist rather than a nationalist event. An order went out to the Tipperary Brigade to seize the banners, and when the Shankill Road Party refused, scuffles broke out. Looking back, would it not have been better, given that the Protestants were marching, to let the Shankill Road contingent continue?
It was felt by the organisers of the march that the Protestant group were being used by the people who were in the Republican Congress as a challenge to the army leadership.
It was horrible. It was shocking. We started off the day with such great joy and delight, and then after this attack, I suppose you'd have to call it an attack. I hate to use the words because it seems so horrible to talk about an attack on one section of a Republican procession by another section.
The notice has been clearly printed in the press, telling all organisations who wish to participate in the Bodenstown commemoration that no banners were to be carried without the express approval of the Chief Marshal. These banners were found not to have the approval of the Chief Marshal. The Chief Marshal had not been asked his permission for these people to carry the banners. They carried the banners, and they were asked peacefully to remove the banners. They refused, and the North Tipperary Battalion were sent down to remove the banners.
In a sense, we didn't want to talk about it because it was the first time that we had seen this kind of fraternal dispute. For the first time it had ever occurred to us that such a thing could happen in the Republican movement. That was the younger ones of us. The older ones were probably just nodding their heads and saying it's happening again.
That particular group of Protestants on the Shankill Road were members of the IRA prior to that, and were imbued with the feelings of Tone and the aspirations of Tone to achieve a free Ireland. They belonged to Connolly of the Belfast Battalion. The Congress, of course, appealed to their socialistic attitudes, and at that particular time there was a fair amount of socialists in the Republican Army, which on the announcement of that the Congress had been set up, there was a split in the Belfast Battalion, in which several members, fairly prominent members and long-standing members, had taken the Congress side. They were dismissed.
Even to people that weren't in favour of Republican Congress, they felt that the fact that Protestants, as Protestants, had come to Bodenstown and had not been welcomed, that was the thing that everyone felt was wrong. I mean, Protestants went to Bodenstown, but we never thought one way or the other, because some of members of Connolly were not Catholic, were new members of the IRA in Dublin, were mixed between Catholic, Protestant and Jew, never mind the centre.
There was a lot of bitterness because of the attitude of the groups who broke away from the Republican Army. It was felt that they weren't Republicans, in the sense that they had tried and had succeeded to an extent in splitting the movement in Belfast.
Here were people from Standard Oil in the Shankill coming to Bodenstown, almost, I suppose, they were proud to come as dissenters, doing what Tone had wanted us to do. And there they were being attacked for doing just that thing. It was all wrong. And the shadow of it spread over everybody. And it lasted for a long time.
In 1936, Fianna Fáil cancelled all trains and buses to Bodenstown as part of an effort to ban the commemoration. To make their way to the parade, a group of Limerick Republicans commandeered a lorry. They were arrested, and each one sentenced to 9 months' imprisonment. The prison regime was harsh. Prisoners were kept in solitary confinement. They were forbidden to speak. The warders even wore rubber shoes. One Republican prisoner, Sean Glynn, was found dead in his cell. He was driven insane and committed suicide by hanging. Bodenstown was again banned in 1939, but it was in 1949 that Christy O'Neill, on behalf of the Army Council, made a famous speech declaring that physical force was to be used solely against the Six County Administration and Crown Forces, and not against the Free State, thus effecting a change in General Army orders. The speech did not go down too well with the rank and file in the 26 counties, who were constantly harassed by the special branch, arrested and even executed by the Free State government. Nor did it stop the Dublin government from interning Republicans during Operation Harvest, the 1956-62 border campaign. The speech did represent a significant shift away from the incestuous and wasteful squandering of resources of the Free Staters, instead of against the British, which has been compared to the feuding in the Belfast ghettos in the 70s. And so, down through the years, the Republican faithful had paid their homage to Tone. John Joe McGurl spoke in 1958, Rory O'Brady in 1959. And then those who in the 60s were to attempt to run down the importance of physical resistance and the necessity of vigilance also took the platform. This was a period of crisis when peaceful demonstrators were battened off the streets, and when the Loyalists reacted to demands for civil rights by murdering Catholics and burning them out of their homes. With the introduction of British forces to shore up Loyalism, it was not long before the reorganised IRA launched an armed struggle against the British presence.
We will not stand by and allow the British Army to walk roughshod over the people. I don't think that Stormont can be allowed to remain in existence, and that the Union is done.
Who's firing these guns we're hearing at the moment?
British Army.
Yes. But your own members are armed too?
No.
They're not armed?
They're not, no.
Then who is it who has been firing at the British Army and throwing jade knife bombs at the British Army?
Our people have been in the past. It's only in retaliation. There will be retaliation for this, what you've just heard.
The law and order situation. Here, we don't need new principles. What we need are practical results on the ground. Practical results in the elimination of terrorism, in the elimination of sabotage, and in the ending of riots and disorder. The rule of law will operate in all parts of Northern Ireland, so that the security which goes with the rule of law can be enjoyed quite literally by all our citizens.
All right. text. In addition, we have held wide-ranging talks with various groups and parties with a view to holding an all-Irish conference.
Politically, it's difficult, it's not impossible. Most of what I want to do is suggest that Europe, the entire motion between the most Protestant people in the forthcoming again.
Well, my reply to that would be this, that if Mr. Weber and his government are sincerely interested in peace, then we'll be prepared to discuss our terms with us.
Throughout the 70s, the platform of Bodenstown was used by the Republican leadership to point the direction forward in good and bad times. In 1977, after a period of some demoralization because of the confusion over the ceasefire in 1975, veteran Republican Jemmy enunciated an important and significant Republican reappraisal when he said,
"The isolation of socialist Republicans around the armed struggle is dangerous and has produced the reformist notion that Ulster is the issue without the mobilisation of the working class in the 26 counties. The British government is not withdrawing from the 6 counties, and the substantial pull-out of business and the closing of factories in 75 and 76 was due to world economic recession, though mistakenly attributed at the time of symptoms of withdrawal. Indeed, the British government is committed to stabilising the 6 counties and is pouring in vast sums of money to assure loyalists and secure from loyalists support for a long haul against the IRA."
That statement of intent is generally taken as initiating the beginning of a complete overhaul of Republican strategy.
Apartheid, internment, conscription, partition, and silence. It's a law that they make to keep you and to be where they think we belong. They hide behind steel and bulletproof glass, machine guns and spikes. And they tell us who suffered the tear gas and torture that's clear in the wrong. No time for love if they come in the morning. No time to show tears or from fear in the morning. No time for goodbye, no time to ask why. And the sound of the silence, the cry of the morning. They suffered the torture, they rotted in cells, they went crazy, wrote letters and died. The limits of pain they endured, the loneliness got them instead. The poets gave them chaos, and justice is given them by a well-mannered throat. Sometimes they fought through the will to survive, more times they just wished they were dead. No time for love if they come in the morning, no time to show tears or for fear in the morning. No time for goodbye, no time to ask why. In the sound of the silence, the cry of the morning. They took away Sackles and Jemmy, Connolly and Pearse in their time. They came to Nugent and Seal, Bobby Sands and some of his friends. In Chicago, Sagons and Diego, Warsaw and Belfast. And places that never make headlines, the list never ends. No time for love if they come in the morning. No time to show tears or for fear in the morning. No time for goodbye and no time to ask why. And the sound of the silence, the cry of the morning.
It's all Sheeha, a real Gaulish. Nothing my age. From Fenian, the running, body concrete, and knockdown. Glamour, Paduvak, and View. Disgubal she her lumir nuasulish or crockow. The crooks renia jalniga. Lilin to gone and nuas. Nidorkakti amwi and gredo bashki. Lilahej broyini argid. And nuas are though and haranakalim arushu. Snadirkli amwi toaster. A Janan Garnak Yoker, August to Gone. Congarak Kishkamana Agony War. Tonjuanma, Agalu, Ganarik Tor. Marata, Armaheri, Agyonsi Tennis, Nabridge, August Anegla, Ahian Anus, Lefania and Lay. Her three head is Tega, Lumnock the Carico. Her million Tavenu, August million Tavru, Atihu Uha. August and Trumley, a Hogan and Nus. Marata, a Technu, a Green Gal. Cossack Lenura, a Tar, and Hushkin Shin. A Gerry and Ergis and Ergit, August Jern, Guinea, the Skogler. Biggie a Gerry of Archer. Turnteel and Féin, August Shmin and Misha. Three a Gan, or a Cactiha, and an Enta or
The elections of hunger strikers Bobby Sands and Kieran Doherty and Blanketman Paddy Agnew in 1981 and the mass mobilisation behind the H Block Armagh prison protest evolved into an electoral intervention policy. The revolutionary struggle was now strengthened through the opening up of another front.
The time was when people could be influenced for 10 years on or 12, 13 years, now people are very foresight. And I think that we've never said anything that Sinn Féin when the leadership of the anti-imperialist people took the overnight thing. We've never suggested it's a gradual thing. We would hope to use the election. There are not a lot of people become involved in the election for the last 3 weeks to build our organisation, to structure the election machine into a tighter and more cohesive and more a broader, if you like, Republican political machine. A victory in West Belfast will be seen as a watershed. I think that what's going to happen tomorrow is that people will realise that they can organise themselves to use their vote to get rid of people who don't obey the mandate on which they were elected.
Thank everybody that helped on behalf of Sinn Féin, Pyramid, and you, Yuki,
Bodenstown has proved to be one of the most, if not the most, important date in the Republican calendar. Generation after generation of Republicans in good and in lean times came to the grave of their founding father, Wolfe Tone, to reaffirm their republicanism and to take note from the key speaker how the leadership sees the struggle developing.
We never hope to achieve our ultimate objective of establishing a democratic socialist republic unless we have a majority support of the Irish people. In brief, the wishes of the majority to be free will come to nothing unless we can channel those wishes into an active will to be free. That is what we must do. That is our work. That can only be done by breaking down the walls of the separate compartments into which the petitioners have attempted to confine the national struggle. The social and economic struggle and the cultural struggle. All three are totally interrelated and interdependent. One cannot arrive at a successful conclusion without the other.
And so another Bodenstown Sunday draws to a close, and the people return to their different areas to continue the struggle for nationhood, a struggle which has survived centuries of oppression, and which has been republican for the last 200 years. It is a struggle which has had to adapt to the changing circumstances of the times, to industrialization, to free statism and revisionism, and above all, to the philosophy of loyalism, with its sectarian, almost racist overtones. In Tone's day, it was the landed gentry who ruled Ireland and pulled the strings. Almost all of them belonged to the established church, and it was the sections of the aggrieved and discriminated against Presbyterian community who united with the liberal Protestants and the Catholic peasantry in the '98 rebellion. Loyalism, which could have been expected to have withered with British withdrawal, was given a new lease of life with the partition of Ireland. Today, there is little or no hope of using Tone's original formula of uniting Protestant, Catholic and Dissenter into a force against the British, although England remains the never-failing source of all our ills. But republicanism takes its commitment to non-sectarianism and its commitment to internationalism from that period, and its radicalism from the host of revolutionary republicans who have developed the struggle since then. Above all, Wolfe Tone shines out as a man of action, a doer in whose footsteps this generation follows.